You have returned, the live streaming audience, to join all of us here at the ashram, SRV ashram in Hawaii on the Big Island, where we are broadcasting the second half of a first class in a 5-class series on food, prana, and sadhana. Now in the first half, and as you can see, we're concentrating on food. There are 4 pillars on this chart which acts as the basis for this whole 5 weeks. And as you can see, we've been pretty much sticking with the first pillar in the first class, food. It's going to be impossible to remain entirely with food without bringing prana into it, or without bringing mind into it, and so forth, because of the interconnectedness of the very nature of what we're talking about. However, we can focus on food and bring some of these elements in as introductions to what's coming up in the series of classes that is meant to inform us about the innate oneness nature of reality. To have such powerful realizations, for instance, if you did, you'd be singing songs like Jo Kucha Hai So Tu Hai Tuj Se Hame Dil Ko Lagaya. Means basically, I've realized, O Lord, that all that exists art thou. And so it's this consummate realization that causes people, once they've experienced it, to look at the universe and all universes, inside and outward, in terms of this innate oneness. Not numerical oneness. Sometimes we talk about that in Vedanta, ekam, as the number 1 in Sanskrit, but ekam as regards to the all-pervasiveness, vyapti, of consciousness, that everything, it's pervading everything, but it's not a thing. It's underlying the prana that flows, but itself doesn't move. It's causing the intelligence to shine, but itself is the very ocean of luminosity, connecting to the luminous mind. The subtitle there, connecting the living prana to the luminous mind. You can't connect the impure prana to anything but the brain, and then it has adverse effects, you see. So we want to make sure that all of these are paid forward in the purest possible way. Shuddhi, again, being one of the yamas and niyamas of yoga in the first 2 limbs. Before you sit, before you breathe consciously. Otherwise you sit and you breathe and you're bringing up impurities up the spine. It was mentioned by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. People would go and sing and dance, and, the names of the Lord and all this. You think, oh, they must come back just in an ecstatic state, with full of devotion. But the next day they're going out doing all those heinous acts. Kundalini went up and it came back down and pulled all the impurities with them out of the chakras, all the poisons, you see. So yes, they were able to get up and out of themselves for a little while, but they came back to the same old self, probably with some extra baggage that they needed to deal with. And you might be able to look at that in a more positive way if you say, well, at least I found out that I do have karmas that I need to deal with, but then you need a method to deal with them. You need to be up and at them, do all work as worship, labor as love, and so forth, and enter into and engage in the 4 yogas. So, in a conscious way. So, in the first half, we were concentrating more on food as Brahman. So we were acknowledging, you might say, the innate connection between everything. So it's good to hear this non-dual truth at the beginning. Sri Ramakrishna told Vivekananda, take this non-dual truth I've told you and put it inside, place it in your wearing cloth, as it were, hide it away. Anytime you need to just take it out and look at it. But in the meantime, go about your daily life of work and worship and study the 4 yogas again, and be able to spread this teachings of the Dharma everywhere. And because of this great strength he had and the increase of stamina that he had, he was able to come to the West. They say he had an equal part of rajas along with his sattva, divine rajas, divine restlessness. When he came to the West, they used to see him pacing, and they'd say, "Oh, well, Swamiji, isn't that just restlessness?" And he said, "No, this is divine restlessness. I'm trying to work out problems for the entire human race right now. And those I can't work out will find a way to move around them." He used to say, it's probably true that not all of us will be able to get enlightenment in this life, maybe in other lives, but we can get a kind of collective enlightenment together. He had this. He was this thinker that was just far beyond any other spiritual thinker that had come to Earth. So he had ingenious ways of using this willpower, this strength of mind, to get beyond these barriers which seemed impassable. And a lot of us have found this to be true when we've taken him as our highest ideal, as our ishtam. That is, in this place, SRV, Sharada Ramakrishna Vivekananda, a very beautiful triple ishtam that we have and hold, as if facets of one diamond. So, based in the Advaita Vedanta, because Holy Mother said when she was asked once, what are we? Are we devotees of Ramakrishna? Are we practitioners of yoga? Are we lovers of the non-dual Brahman? What are we? He said, you're Advaita Vedantas. You're non-dualists. Because Ramakrishna was a non-dualist, you're a non-dualist. And that kind of non-dualism includes everything from sadhana right on up to Mother Kali herself, his ishtam, Divine Mother of the Universe, that he had fully realized, all the way to the Shakti and to the luminous mind. So in that regard, some words about non-duality brought forward are always very important to put into this massive teachings. I mean, basically what we have here is two things: the non-dual reality and the practice that removes impurities. And there's a popular notion out there that the practice, if you do practice, then you're not a non-dualist. But that's not what we're saying here. We're saying that it's very rare you see a perfected soul in this world like Narendra, like Swami Vivekananda. And when you do, you realize that he is practicing very intensely in front of you just to show you how to do it. Ramakrishna practiced darshanas and even other religions of other countries so that he could open these inner channels for people. I mean, you think he was doing that for no good reason? Sure, he loved divine reality. The more the better. He liked to see God through every path possible. That's what Holy Mother said about him. But his 12-year sadhana was an intense way of opening up channels inside of us so that we could move towards our highest aspirations. Not just have them, but move towards them. And that's what connecting what you eat to the energy that flows from food to your hopefully, supposedly radiant mind, see, beyond the brain, is all about. It's not just something you hold as an ideal, it's something that you become. It becomes your lifestyle, it becomes how you live. It's your existence with a capital E. You can do it here, you can do it anywhere, as the song says, you see. This is the hardest place to do it, here in the density of matter. To bring light into matter, it's very resistant to that. Even minds are resistant to it, you see. I don't want to do it, the kids. I don't know how to do it. I can't do it, the kids say in grade school. It's like they were born with the idea that they, of resistance against anything that's for their highest good. And so you cater to them, you see. And hopefully you don't just cater to them with these inferior methods, but you can give them some Vishishtadvaita. You can give them some true religion. You can give them some higher philosophy. Because if not, then they're not going to move. And their children aren't going to move. Souls are moving only, non-actually, between the world and samsara, in a round of births and deaths, as Buddha saw. So it really behooves us and falls to us as a pathway to integrate see it in its comprehensive originality, and then see the defects in it, remove them, see, and help the prana flow right through those impediments. So if you gain strength, then that's good from food. If you can increase your stamina, we're not just saying strengthen your body alone. Stamina here means inner, stamina for inner life. You can see it immediately jumps to posture and breathing. See, so they have a path for you cut out in yoga, sadhana practice. Increase your stamina. What's that means? It means that you're weak inside. You're mere babies. Who said that? Vivekananda said that when he came to the West in 1893. He took one look at us and said, I see you're just mere babies spiritually. You don't know a thing. And then after that he said, children like you are need to be taught. You must submit to be taught, and I will teach you this way to awaken yourself again out of this pathetic condition you've fallen into. This must be obvious to us, even as devotees, what's happening to the world under the auspice of unenlightened people, just to be kind to them, unawakened souls. What to speak of the demoniacal souls that Krishna talks about in the Gita. There's a division between the divine and the demoniacal. Read that chapter if you want to have an eyeful, have an awakening to the Maya that people are in, to the unconnectedness of life, the disconnectedness of everything. Not just the disconnected family that we're talking about, the non-functional family. It's non-functioning spirituality, which is the essence of everything. So you increase your stamina means you better eat this food consciously and purify it, and then use it to move inside. Just use it to pedal your body around the world on bicycles or in cars or jogging or something, you see, and think that that's the end-all be-all of existence. You need an inner life. Christ told the fishermen that along the river. Fish, nets, huts, and wives aren't going to do it for you. You need to awaken and to a spiritual life, and then become fishers of men. That's going to take strength. See? Now that strength, according to Vivekananda, is called virya. It's one of his favorite words in Sanskrit. Virya, the hero, means heroic strength that can move mountains. And he certainly epitomized that in his 39 years here, and even ran channels out of India into other countries against the will of his own people. They didn't want the teachings taken out of India. The Brahmin priests were against it. And Vivekananda wasn't hearing about it. He said, no, I'm a sannyasin. I won't lose my caste for going out of India the way you would if you left, because you're caste bound, but I'm caste free. Mm-hmm. And besides, if you want to look at the Americans right now, they seem to me to be Brahmins. They seem to be of a higher caste. They're intellectual now. They have advancement in science, far more than his people had. See, his original idea was to leave India in its horrible condition, go to America, have the Americans become aware of the Indian condition and send money and materials back to help them. Later he said, I gave that up. See? But not completely, because when he did start teaching the Vedanta in the West, then you had people beginning to contribute time, energy, and money back to India, and India has benefited greatly by taking that part of Western materialism on. But it also had to take on this horrible problem of Western materialism at its worst. That is, anti-religion, anti-gods and goddesses, anti-spirituality. So that it had to deal with. Ramakrishna had actually come to stem the tide of that. That was one of the things that an avatar does, is stem the tide of that kind of low thinking, mean thinking, and stand there and awaken them up again to the truths in the Vedas, the truth of the Upanishads, the truth of the Gita, because the Indian people were beginning to lose their faith in those great scriptures. So, very important. I'm saying all of this just under the heading of food, strength, and capacity. Capacity is a very important and beautiful thing. Increase your capacity to know Brahman. That's why I started off today's class with Om Apyantu Mamangani Vak Pranaschakshu Shrotra Matra Bhamendriyani Cha Sarvani. May our bodies gain strength. May our prana flow unimpeded. May our minds expand in their capacity to know Brahman. Right out of the Upanishads, one of the 7 peace chants that many of you have memorized in SRV. It says it all right there. Body strength, prana flowing again, minds increasing in its capacity to know Brahman. Another thing, back there in the 60s and so forth, increase your awareness, increase your consciousness. It wasn't being told to us right, because Brahman doesn't increase. Neither does it decrease. And you're that all the time, you just don't know it. So what's got to increase is your capacity of the mind to know Brahman. That's what needs to increase. You have to open your mind. It's a cliche statement, but it's different than opening the brain, and it's going to be a lot different than just giving up your prejudices, you see. You want to open it to this flow of prana that goes all the way to the kingdoms of heaven and back, every night, every 24 hours. You're this great sojourner, you see. You're this noble soul. What are you doing restricted to this little tiny mud hut, you see, called the earth? You need to move, see, until such a time when movement's not necessary anymore, because you reach the highest truth and there is no movement there. Brahman doesn't move. The mind is actually the mover. If anything, Brahman's the unmoved mover, the unseen seer, the unstruck sound, the inactive agent. They can place all those appellations for the non-dual Brahman because they're koans. See, they're things you can meditate on to understand the difference between action and inaction, between meditation and work, between Dhyan Yoga, Raja Yoga, and Karma Yoga. You need to understand these distinctions, and in the same way we need to understand these connections, because just catching a glimpse of them will open them. That's the beautiful thing about spiritual life. It's not like, you see, like tilling a field, or sitting on a toilet or something, you see. It's not that kind of effort, you see. It's subtle, and it just takes your awareness placed upon a thing. It takes an active mind, right? Didn't we just say it there? We probably could repeat it. See, the Atman comes in. What was it? The prana enters into the body from the Atman by an act of the mind. Now, when I first read that in the Prashna Upanishad, it answered a question I'd had for a long time. Where does the prana come from? And in the sloka that's previous to that, in that Upanishad, that's what I think it's the 4th question of the Prashna Upanishad, means 6 questions asked to the Rishi Pipalada. And that was the 4th. Where does the prana come from? And he answered that, just like that. This enlightened soul, Pipalada, just answered it just like that. The prana comes into the body from the Atman by an act of mind. And I didn't put in the rest of it. It means, like that, it's like the shadow of a man. The prana is like a shadow of a man coming from the Atman. So it gives us an idea of the origin of things, and it also explains how Brahman and prana are so intrinsically connected that's why people mistake one for the other. They think life force is God, you see. That I'm moving, that I'm thinking, that I'm eating, that I'm enjoying, that I'm breathing, that's all God. Yeah, that's a great realization to have. But the only thing you're falling short of there is that when you reach stunned samadhi, all of that will disappear. Mm-hmm. You won't be moving anymore. Now, is that a scary thing? Or is that whatever that person's realizing in stunned samadhi. See? Did he actually see all the kingdoms of heaven within him and say, marvelous, marvelous, cosmic mind, right? Have his vision of cosmic mind, and all of a sudden say, but wait, all of this is in me. If it wasn't, I wouldn't be seeing it, see? And that's why all of a sudden he becomes static and motionless. All of a sudden, he doesn't desire to move anymore. He'd rather witness. That's called sakshibhutam, becoming the witness of all phenomena. Phenomena gets rather, I'm tired. Yes, you've been there, done that. Surfed enough waves, you see. I think I want to surf waves of consciousness now, and then maybe just render the whole ocean still. See, I think I'll become a diver, dive deep into the depths of God's beauty. For there you will find the gem of love, see, as Kabir said, the great poem Kabir. Dive deep into the oceans of God's beauty. There you will find the gem of love. Or if you're a devotee, go seek, O mind, the Vrindavan in your heart, where with his loving devotees Sri Krishna sports eternally. And Vrindavan is Krishna's place, right? In the heart. So you'll see everything spread out like a shadow of a man, you see, from the Atman, turning into Shakti, turning into psychic prana, turning into prana, all the way down to food. You're seeing it from the inside out now. And in fact, probably from the transcendent to the inside, to the out. Because inside and out won't make sense to you anymore. See? There's only the transcendent. There's only Brahman here. See? So, again, some things about increasing your stamina. I'm not harping on it, I'm emphasizing it. This inner strength, the capacity you need to engender in yourself, is going to help you move towards your goal and not develop the problems of antaryayas. See, these. See, 9 obstacles to yoga. Let's look at them. In terms of increasing your stamina, because these are the things that will get in your way as you try to do this. And your act of will from the mind with that prana is going to have to be strong, you see. A weakling's not going to be able to pass inside. You're going to have to take those apart and, like a laser, increase your stamina and just pierce through them. See, they will not stand in my way. And that's going to start building some subtle muscles inside of you that you can use for higher purposes later on. Since it's come up here, then let's look at it. It's father of yoga's system, the 9 antaryayas. They're also called vikshepas. And that means obstacles. He says, that is, he himself, Patanjali says, being suffer via bondage to pleasure due to performing actions because of attraction and aversion to matters they have assumed to be accurate based on unstable vrittis of the mind. There's a 4-part sentence for you. The unstable vrittis of your mind are this erratic, see, being caused by erratic prana. Right? If your prana is erratic, your mind's erratic. Your thoughts are erratic. You wonder, from whence came this restless mind? Why are my thoughts restless, you see? Because my prana is restless. It's not even and flowing. It's got rough edges. See? It's at variance. Sometimes it even stops and goes again. That's one of the proofs that prana is not Brahman, is that it moves and that it stops and goes. Its flow gets impeded. It breaks through and then it flows again. So it cannot be Brahman that's perfect and pure in all places at all times. So prana is going to be very important to get that under control, to purify it, to control it, and to raise it. We'll look at that. But this is, again, part and parcel of what you do in yoga and Vedanta. To me, if you have the Vedantic non-dual wisdom and then you go into yoga, there's no way that you're not going to get enlightened in one lifetime. Vivekananda said in 6 months. But let's see, that might be a far cry for us still. See, or maybe in this very second, we can just be ourselves. You see, that's a very high ideal to hold. And you should hold it every once in a while. You might drop it occasionally, like a hot potato, you see. But you should build up the stamina to hold that vision, because the more it is, the more it becomes true for you. And I remember hearing about it my first time from Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel, said to me by Lex Hickson, our founder. And he was saying, no, this is the real truth like this, Babaji. I said, that just seems impractical to me. How can we do that? See, there's so many imperfections and problems in the way of that. But the more I heard about it and the more I pondered it, the more it became the truth to me. And there's a part of the mental process there in that hearing, Shruti, where you begin to contemplate it, yukti, analyze it, and it starts to ring true to you. And just that process starts to take away your doubts. And that is opening up channels, see. If you want to start looking at everything as just opening up channels into the luminous mind, you should start doing that. Anything any act or any experience you have is an opportunity to open up a nadi into a new realm, you see. But this has to happen inward too, not just outward. I've said before, people are attached to their experiences. Sattva, right? They want to have experiences. Bad ones come, good ones come, mixed ones come. But they're willing to put up with all that just to have those good ones, you see, those pleasurable ones. But what they're not doing is extracting any essence from their experiences. You know, there's a story that I was thinking about. Bees fly around from flower to flower. Now, some of those bees are without a hive, you see, and others have a hive and a queen, right? You know what I'm getting at here, I hope, already. Some of us have the Divine Mother, and we have our Sangha. That's the queen, and that's our hive. And all the nectar we're gathering from these flowers, we're taking back to her, right? No doubt, you see. We're going to give it all back to her because that's where we came from. That's our origin. But other bees out there, they're rogue bees, you see. They've lost their hive. Somebody destroyed it, or they destroyed it, or the queen is gone, you see. To go find another one, you see. Maybe an inferior one. So the whole point of this is that with this strength, you can gather experiences and extract the essence out of them and keep that and let the experience go. Experiences are going to come and go all the time, and you don't want to just be having them and suffering and enjoying them, because that's movement, you see, that's not Brahman. And thou art Brahman. O noble mind, you're just like the black bee buzzing around flowers in a tapestry. See? One of the poems, right? Mm-hmm. Did I send you one recently? I hope.
Yeah.
Good. Good. I don't want to forget that. So you're studying these Kali poems if you want to take them and contemplate them through the email. So, oh mind, oh noble mind, you're just a black bee buzzing around flowers in a tapestry. So this bee has gotten, seduced by the look of a thing, and it can't get any nectar out of them. It's just wasting its time circumambulating this tapestry with no real nectar in it. You see, that's how the songwriter says in India that you're not getting essence out of these experiences. You're trading in the gold of your soul for the cheap baubles of relative experiences. Another song puts it. Like, oh mind, you're just a little fish on the surface, where the sparkling waters have attracted you, where death is granted as fishing grounds. You can't take poems and read them like that and think of the person who had the experiences around them, gathered the essence, and wrote the songs and put them down for you, whether they be songs or scripture, and not get inspired. Inspired to do what? to move toward your center and be absolutely sure of the progress. So back to this is the two spiritual problems here, is failure to make spiritual progress and the habit of backsliding. Patanjali, that will start at the real problems for us, because we know about these. This is pretty important, but we're clarifying that right now. Bhranti darshan is just what Buddha called, wrong perspective, or the opposite of that. Let's have right perspective. Samyak dristi, let's have right seeing as one of the Eightfold Path of the fourth noble truth, right? So Patanjali probably lived some 600-700 years after Buddha, and he saw that system and was very much impressed with it. So he called it Bhranti Darshana, false seeing. Darshan is to see, Bhranti is delusion. So you have deluded seeing on the philosophical level. Oh, these poor people out here, they probably have false seeing about everything. But you've come a long ways. So you've gone through all this, you see. You don't have problems with your blood, your flesh, your bones, your air, your bile, your phlegm, dhatus. You don't have erratic hormones, gastric fluids, fluid essences, rasas, and you don't have karanas, active and cognitive senses and mind. Hopefully the problems have been taken out of those. See? And if not, then go back to your pure food, you see. Because something's missing, as we were saying. It's not that diseases don't come, see. I have a whole chart here, this long one here, on the origin of disease that we can look at next week by Lord Vashishta. Now, Patanjali and Lord Vashishta are the two bookends of holistic health in the world for all time. Vashishta was the earliest, Patanjali is the most recent. Bookends of holistic health, holism, that didn't just take the body and exercise, food, and say that's all we need, but then took it and connected it to the energy, prana, then took it and connected it to the mind, then took it and connected it to the intelligence, and then connected it right to Brahman. These are our two bookends in this world, in its entire history, for holism or holistic health. We go to them, see, to understand the origin of disease and our perfect health, our innate perfect health. So if you start there with the physical, there are two great problems. Antaryayas. Antaryaya has been defined in Sanskrit as the word despoiler. I like that, you see. It spoils your life, right? So bad health on the physical level, plus ambivalence, stodginess, laziness, procrastination, fickleness. Actually, sthana really kind of means weight. So he's really talking about obesity, a big problem in the world today, right? Everyone's getting fat, see? And those who are not are impoverished. Talk about this big breach between the lower class and the upper class. Well, one's fat, and the other one's like almost a skeleton, you see. No food and too much food, right? But somewhere in between there's a balance here where we're going to have pure food brought in, right? And we can just be the way we are. You see, we can sit, we can breathe, we can live, we can eat moderately, we can enjoy life, we can have sattva of the mind. All these things are ours, but we want them in the yogic way. We want them in the dharmic way, with the least amount of karmas and problems attending us. No baggage at the end of our life. Ashesha, no residue left over. You see. So, these are the physical problems. Weightiness. You could say, isn't that just weightiness of mind? But that's here, alasya. Stubbornness, heaviness. There it is in the mind. So Patanjali is saying, really, your weightiness physically is connected to your mind. If you thought fit, if you thought healthy, if you thought slender, if you thought trim, then you would be that way. If you had the power to do so. See? But you can't just think something and have it happen, right? It doesn't work that way. Swami Sheshananda, speaking of Ashesha, said to me once, the power of doing must be accompanied by the power of being. Otherwise, nothing will happen. Power of doing must be accompanied by the power of being, or else nothing will happen. He put it in another way once. He said, mere affirmation will not make any difference unless you have spiritual discipline behind it. So he had his eye on us in the West. He knew exactly where we were falling down. And he was going to nip us in the bud right there. If you were at his ashram, you heard that, you see, again and again from the podium. Matter if it made you tired and bored or not, he was going to tell you that. And sometimes he'd even scold it into you. See, you can't just walk. You hear about the Mahavakyas, that thou art, Pragyanam Brahman. This consciousness is pure, intelligent, you see. Tat Om Tat Twamasi, thou art that, you see. Then you walk out of there so high. Then he sees you and going, mere affirmation will not do it. You need spiritual disciplines behind it, you see. You must have the power of being before the power of doing makes any sense. So he was there to explore those safety zones you ran for, you see, or those premature states of mind you took on, you see. He was going to knock those out of you. Until you could stand in front of him and take a scolding and just laugh. See? Oh, say what you want. Then he'd laugh too, you see. That happened to me once. He turned to me and he said, I laughed at one of his scoldings, and he said, you'll just have to forgive me, I'm a man of moods. He walked away. So he was there to check you to the root of your being. Make sure this philosophy was not misunderstood. I could tell you about my lawnmower incident, but you've all heard it too many times, I'm sure. That's a precision instrument. You must know how to use a precision instrument. So, because I had broken something on it, you see. So he was there for that. Now, the mental are four. Samshaya, Pramada, Alasya, and Avirati. First, doubt is there, samshaya. It's a mental problem. Patanjali is putting it in the four levels of your being. He's putting these obstacles that are common to everyone. You have doubt. We'll call it, I put other words there if you prefer, indecision, inadvertence, uncertainty. And in fact, today's day and age, my work for 30 or 40 years with Western students in spiritual life, inadvertence is the word that's the best. And I've never seen such inadvertency as I've seen in Western students of yoga and Vedanta. That's a very good word to describe it. That courage of your convictions, that ability to follow your original intention. See, that's a whole channel with erratic prana in it, you see. So it shakes the mind and it falls, you see. There's a beautiful there, what is it here? Yeah, from all of this, you see, from eating unwholesome food, eventually distension and contraction of the orifices of the nerves of the joints happens, and interruption of the prana flow in the body is subjection to the five elements. Pretty soon you have this prana that's habitually vibrating erratically. You ever seen people like going like this, or they're like at the table, their legs going like that? Just put your hand on it, stop it, I actually do that to people. Stop that. So there's just, the body shows these signs of erratic inner energy, and you never see just a calm person breathing naturally. Where are they, you see? We want more of those. They're just naturally calm and peaceful. You need peace first and foremost, or you could even sing that. One Swami sent me this couplet. Om Shanta Mahanto Nivashanti Shanto Vashantavad Lokahitam Charantaha Om. There are luminaries on this earth, silent and great, who, like the spring season, Vashanta, bring about the well-being of the world. Isn't that beautiful? I have that written in a letter, handwritten letter from the old days, because emails now have taken that over. But this handwritten letter of this beautiful couplet in Sanskrit with the transliteration in English from Swami Sunir Malananda, who's now in the Netherlands. Salutations to you if you're watching, or when you watch, that he sent me this beautiful couplet in Sanskrit. So there are beings silent and great. They have that shanti in them. Shanti, 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 in all three levels, right? Outer, inner, and transcendent. It's there, pervading everything. So you need peace first and foremost, Holy Mother said. So that's something here about this inadvertence or indecision that's going on. That's erratic prana that's causing that. You can nip that in the bud. You can calm those energies. You can sand and polish those nerves, inside and out, so nothing will impede the energy that flows through them. Otherwise, you get diseases. Parkinson's is just caused by erratic prana. You're not going to find a medicine for that. In fact, you're not going to find a medicine for any disease, except going to your mind and nipping it at the bud where it started. All diseases happen in the mind first, and later they come into the body. That's a rule of health in India. By him, Lord Vashishta. We'll get to that. So these mental problems, be good to put your energy on them with some increased capacity. Pramada, carelessness, resistance, negligence, disbelief, heedlessness, inattentiveness, superficiality, take your pick. I thought of all the words I could think of that were descriptive of such a state called pramada, and it gives you the idea of one of the mental problems in us. For the Advaita, it was heedlessness, remember? He got the teaching of heedlessness from one of his teachers in nature. I think there was this stork or bird, flamingo or whatever, walking across this pond. It wasn't heedless of things, and the alligator just snapped its long legs underneath and it buckled. See, gone. And the Advaita saluted and said, "Oh, you're my teacher of heedlessness." You have to be careful around here, Don't know what's under them waters. So heedlessness is a good one to pick. Another one is alasya. We just mentioned that. Even sounds like what it is, right? You feel like slumping when you even hear it. Alasya. Alas, it's alasya. So it's idleness, stubbornness, heaviness of the mental variety. Call it tamas if you want. Tamas is the guna of stodginess, inertia is the scientific way to put it. It's there in nature, and it's there in the creative process. It's also there in the mind, because nature and the creative process came out of the mind. God didn't initiate it, and nature can't do it by itself. It took intelligence to produce all this. And that's your intelligence, by the way. Want to reach it? Otherwise you'll be singing that old familiar song. See? Can't reach your brain. See? My energy can't reach my brain. In fact, my food can't even reach my energy. See? I'm left outside in the lurch. Avirati. Does it sound familiar? Like, say, think back on the 4 treasures and 6 jewels of Vedanta. Sadhana Chatushtaya. And you see the 6 jewels are Samo, Dhammo, Upariti, Titiksha. So Upariti is the opposite of this one, Avirati. Avirati means incontinence, immoderation, or too much sensuality. Any way you put it, you're squandering the energy from prana that comes out of your senses. Now, there's some people that, through whatever reason, for whatever reason, are born with a lot of energy. Maybe they've been able to channel it somewhat, so they have a lot of it. But a lot of it is just moving out through their senses, and their vital organs start to deteriorate. And, they're probably obese by the time they're 30, and their minds are not under their control, and they die young and so forth. So the yogi's idea is stop that energy from going out the senses, turn it back and store it, refine it and store it. That's going to be a part of what we talk about when we say purify, control, and raise the prana, is that if you can do that, that's what the yogis want. I mean, what the yogis want is samadhi for you. But they take a look at you, in the West I'm talking about, and they say, body, that's okay. Energy, pretty good. They've got some intelligence. They look at both sides of everything. Now where do we start them on the path? Prana. You go to a yogi teacher, they're going to, not just a hatha yogi teacher, because that's asana, but if you go to a real yogi teacher, and in the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad, it even says this, is that they want you to get a hold of the prana first. So it's sort of like going to the middle. If you can get a hold of the prana first, then you can go backwards to food, and you can go forwards to samadhi. See, the prana is that important to the teachers of yoga, that you have to get that awakened first. So this is very important right here. This, as you might already be thinking to yourself, is, well, having me select a guru and secure a mantra, but you're telling me to use the mantra way back here for food, But this is just an 8x11 that got expanded, and a lot of missing links here, smaller ones that could be put in there in the spaces. What we're really saying here is that the way most people are perceiving is this way. You see, this is a system that you can look at with 4 pillars, and it's not all going to be just linear. That what's happening for you in spiritual life, especially at this point in America, with the parents you had, the upbringing you had, the society you have, the politics that are here, the business that's going on, and the fundamentalist religion that's operating everything. This is where you are. And so it's not all going to be linear and perfect. You might have to go back and plug up some gaps, open some nadis. What a novel idea, you see. I'm going to have to work with what I have, right? So we were talking last time in my visit to the Portland ashram about the difference between filling in gaps and backtracking. See, backtracking is allowed because of the things I just told you. Filling in gaps, that's not so desirable. See, those things are going to deter you on the path. See, but backtracking, like saying, for instance, my children didn't turn out so well. Maybe I wasn't a very good parent, so I have to go back. You see, find out why I wasn't a very good parent, and try and bring that forward to make my children better. Hurry, quick, before it's too late. So that's an idea of backtracking. That's healthy, you see. That's like second best. But filling in gaps, often not. So you have these samskars in your mind that make you, again, just give up the whole path and waffle, you see, and just backtrack, you see. I'm getting to that. Let's look at Bhranti Darshana, because that's the single intellectual impediment he talks about. It's so important because of that. It's a nice long 7 Sanskrit word, alabda, bhumi, katva. So it basically means backtracking, or failure to proceed. It's like 1 step forward, 2 step back's problem that we encounter at all levels of our existence. But he's talking about it here philosophically, is that we make some headway and we think we understand something. Someone comes along from the medical profession or from the therapy realm or from our upbringing, our parents or our relatives or friends in our family, and undermines it, and we fall back. See? We can't follow the philosophy that we've selected for ourselves because everything's against it. See? They're not going to support us. So we have to renounce our family. We have to renounce our society. We have to renounce the world if we want truth. Mm-hmm. Go ask Buddha, Christ, and others. So this misconception, this delusion, this distortion on the intellectual level, the prana flowing through smooth and evenly through these wide open nadis or nerves is going to help that. We won't have doubt and delusion and so forth come upon us because of that. The interconnectedness of these impediments, then, they help one another when they're improved, help the flow of prana. Prana is all the way up to the psychic, remember. So you're just saying, oh, I'm getting a little confused here because you're talking about food and prana. How's that going to help anything at such a high level as the intellect? Well, this is the intellect right here. This is both the opening to it and the barrier to it. The psychic prana can be a huge impediment because you get attracted to occult power. Because by the time you're there, you've got a guru and you've got a mantra and you're beginning to worship and read scripture. You've got a lot of power in your hands if you're a sensitive, awake person. And you can use that power for alternative purposes or even for negative purposes. You get attracted to the Ashtabala Siddhas, the 8 occult powers, and you ruin your spiritual life and your path. You deviate completely off the course intended for you, which is samadhi. So, on the other hand, psychic prana, if it's supplied by pure prana, it can penetrate through these problems, including the intellectual barrier, penetrate right through it. Like I said, like putting your mind adamantly on that impediment, just like you'd place a laser on a cancer, you see, and just burn through it. All in one fell swarupa. See, as I often say. Swarupa means essence in Sanskrit. I'm making a pun. One fell swarupa. So this leads us to the, I could go on and on with the intellectual. That one is Bhranti Darshana. I'd say if we could remove that in our Western followers and aspirants, that it would open up everything on all sides. We'd see the possibilities for truth in this lifetime, even in our culture. And we'd be much more effective workers, teachers. Every profession would vibrate at a greater rate if we had clear seeing. For instance, if we gave up the idea of eternal damnation, that's an intellectual barrier, you see. If we gave up the idea of the 7-day creation theory and replaced it with non-origin, that nothing's ever born, nothing ever dies. If we gave up the idea of just trying to reach heaven as the highest and went to reach formlessness, those would be examples of how we could go beyond Bhranti Darshana, and we would do it wisely and carefully. It's like Vivekananda said, we need to read the Bible, we need to read the Gita, we need to read the Quran and understand them. We don't want to do away with them. We can only transcend them by understanding them. So you want to take these teachings in of the Dharma, maybe of all the different religions, and find out what's there, understand it, and then go beyond it. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, what's the use of a water tank during a flood? See, understand what he was saying by that? He meant the Vedas and the scriptures are useless to a realized soul. He's flooded with the highest intelligence, not just this kind of intelligence that's blocked. He's flooded with the highest intelligence. He doesn't need the scriptures anymore. He's already understood them. That's the flood of divine realization. Hard to express that, you see, but that's our seers from India. A whole line of them with copious amount of scriptures they've left behind for us. I have a new chart on that, of course. I'll show you sometime. So that brings us to the two spiritual impediments. Alabdha bhumikatva, failure to make progress, and anavastitattvani. That means I like to choose backsliding. But inability, which is of course connecting us back to this inability to have capacity or stamina. We don't believe in ourselves, right? And we're not actually believing in the methods that the seers are trying to tell us, you see, trying to advise us about and initiate us into. If we had full faith in them, then a labdhamikatva would not be a problem, faithlessness, and we would move beyond this backsliding that's happening to us. We would make substantial spiritual progress today, tomorrow, next week, and we wouldn't stop till the goal's reached. Utitasta jugrata prapyavarani bodhata. Bodhata is intelligence. We'll get to that highest intelligence by opening up these nadis and not stopping till the goal is reached. And we are moving toward explanation of that goal as far as words can tell. Now, you might be interested, as a sidebar, to look at the 4 causes of distraction, because this is the erratic prana we're talking about. And erratic food is contributing to it. What you eat, you are. So basically, if you eat this food with an erratic mindset, then the prana that comes from it is also erratic. Now, these 4 causes of distraction, according to the father of yoga, are dukkha, dharmanasya, angame jayatva, and shvasa prashvasaha. That's even hard to say. Sounds like a sneeze or something. Shvasa prashvasaha. So it even sounds like what it is, unevenness in in-breath and out-breath. Now, when you control the prana, then you even out the breathing process. Pardon me for a second, and I will read you, if you can't see from where you are, this beautiful quote here from the Prajnopanishad, right next to Lord Shiva. There are 5 kinds of prana, you know. Actually, there's really 1, but it has 5 forms, Vivekananda says. Apana facilitates evacuation as well as generation. Samana distributes all the offered food to the organs and so forth. Prana itself operates and fills the senses. Through the main nadi, that's the main nerve, your sushumna, the udana carries the soul back and forth between the various worlds. And vyana pervades and moves through the many thousands of gross and subtle nerves. That's the Prajnopanishad's explanation of the 5 pranas. And they're speaking here in a combination of wisdom that's both external and internal, as you can see. It talks about the body, it talks about nerves, but it also talks and infers about this prana operating at a psychic level. Otherwise, they wouldn't be talking about you leaving your body through the main channel with the help of this upward moving prana called udana. That's a very important. In fact, there are 2 or 3 other slokas just about that prana in the Taittiriya Upanishad. The udana is almost focused upon of the 5. This upward moving prana is very important for the yogi to get in control of, because then they can, then they can move consciously in and out of the body. And in meditation, they can inspire their thoughts. See, it's all upward moving, inward moving. The udana is very important in that way. So there's an all-pervasive prana that's in all of your senses and nerves. There's an upward moving, there's a downward moving. And so the teaching of the 5 pranas is there. You can see them in every little act you do. If you breathe out, that's one form of prana. Breathing in is another form of prana. So this is my point, why I went back here to this, and now I'm going back to this other teaching, because basically you want to even out the breath. Even out the in-breath and out-breath. First, practice it consciously. It'll later you won't have to. Later you'll always be either breathing in and out, or you won't be breathing at all. Not breathing at all is a very good thing if you visit Calcutta. That's one power that I got over the prana and used in my life, in my dozen or so visits to Calcutta. It's just not breathing. I'll go down the road in a taxi and whatever, and I won't breathe for minutes. If I do, it's going to be just enough to satisfy the psychological urge to move my lungs, you see. Because in deep sleep, you actually go for minutes without breathing. A lot longer than a pearl diver would go without breathing. You go into states like that are breathless states. And there's a samadhi called breathless samadhi. You know what it's called? kumbhaka. And it's also the name of your held breath. Your in-breath is called what? Huh? Puraka. Your held breath is then kumbhaka. Out-breath is rechaka. And then you have another kumbhaka at the bottom. They don't usually teach about that one. That's the fear of death kumbhaka. Under a huge pine tree in Gaston, Oregon, in my late 20s, I practiced a breathing exercise given to me by a wise old yogini that gets you over your fear of death. You breathe in with restricted nasal passage, throat. You restrict it with your jaw. You breathe in, you hold, you breathe out, and you hold. So I got it so that I could breathe in for about a minute 15 seconds, then hold for about 45 seconds, then breathe out for about 45 seconds, and then hold again at the bottom. Now the holding at the bottom after you've held your breath for 2 minutes is very difficult. Every fiber of your being, every cell, every atom is crying out, breathe in now. You want to breathe in now. And you have to resist that. And that's what gets you over your fear of death, if you can control the impulse to breathe. And that's where the connection between body, breath, and mind comes in. Because your mind, see, right now you're doing this practice as a breathing exercise that someone told you to do. But if you had have already mastered the prana in a previous lifetime and you came into the body, then you'd just be shutting down your system. And you wouldn't be thinking of anything like doing an exercise. This is natural to you, see, because you don't breathe outside the body. Why should you breathe inside? See? The first thing people panic when they go to death is, I don't have lungs. I'm not breathing. And they go unconscious. And, they go unconscious for 100 years. And then 100 years later, they take their first breath. So, you lived through 100 years of breathlessness, didn't you? What's the problem here, you see? The problem is waking up in another body ignorantly. So practice your breathing exercise, you see. And there's even songs, beautiful songs about it. Pranayamam prachaharam nicha viveka vicharam japta smeta samadhi vidanam purvam varanam madhavadanam. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Mudamate, Samprapte Sanihite Kale, Nahi Rakshati Dukren Karane, Bhaja Govinda. So we know the meaning of that. Adore the Lord, adore the Lord, adore the Lord, you fool. When the time of death comes, what will all of this matter to you? He was speaking to a grammarian he met on the river. What good will your rules of grammar do you at the time of death? But this particular beautiful slokam that this Swami wrote, this Acharya is a Swami, but this Acharya of the Ramakrishna, of the Shankar order says, practice, where is it? One of these. Well, I don't know, but I'll do it from the Sanskrit. So, pranayamam. So you breathe. Do your breathing exercises, he says. Pratyaharam. Take the senses back from the objects. Nitya viveka vicharam. Practice discrimination between the real and the unreal, and the art of who am I? Japya sameta samadhi vidanam. Do your japa practice. Chant the names of the Lord. Kurya vadanam mahadavadanam. Do all of these exercises and be free. So, beautiful verse in the Bhaja Govindam of many, many countless verses which are written by the Shankar order. So all of this to say, practice your breathing exercises. See, this is one of the great causes of distraction, is that your breath is not regulated. It's become a bad habit. Now correct it, because the prana will be erratic if you don't. See, but once you can breathe, and you remember to breathe all the time, and you know the significance behind the breath. The in breath is A, and the held breath is U, and the out breath is M. That it connects with your waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state, and you can connect these, then there will be enlightenment. See, otherwise, unconnected, there's distraction. See, there's problems. Now, I started at the end, but let's go back to dukkha. That's just sorrow, pain, distress, grief, unhappiness. Do I need to tell you about that? Or have you had enough of it already? Let's see. Dukkha. What's the opposite of dukkha?
Sukha.
Sukha. There are songs that we sing, sukha, dukkha. See, it's about happiness and sorrow. This is one of the very base pairs of opposites that you have to get over. Dharmanasya, well, manas definitely is mind. So we see the mind gets depressed, it despairs, it's afflicted, and a lot of it is due to this mental stress that we could control. And all of that also connected to this erratic prana that's flowing into your mind from the prana into the psychic prana. If you take that with you, your meditations are erratic, your dreams are erratic, your life is erratic, and your next lifetime will also be erratic. Why do you think so many people are born with restless minds? Is that God's fault, or the devil did that? Or did they just not practice their yoga, you see, in the previous lifetime, so they developed a habit, a samskara for that. Now you can explain the whole world of people by their samskaras, and you're not dragging God and the poor devil into it. Devil's saying, I didn't do it, I just got 2 horns and a tail, it's not my fault. Mm-hmm. So I'm red. What's this race discrimination? Mm-hmm. See? Poor devil is in you. You see, don't blame him for everything. In fact, turn him into a wrathful deity. It'll be good for you. You see, master him. Now, anga me jayatva. You know what anga is? What is Patanjali's yoga system called?
Ashtanga.
Ashtanga, so 8. Yeah. So, but that's ashta. What's anga mean? Limb. So I can't reach my limbs. You see, I really can't settle my limbs. You see. You see, they're angular, they're awkward. You see, and I don't know where to put them. You see, even when I meditate, I'm doing pretty good, but my arms are just, maybe my legs are hurting too. So all my 4 limbs they're not mastered. My posture isn't mastered. It gets back to master your posture. You see, so there's a mantra for that. A mudra for that. Left hand supports the right hand. You'll see Vivekananda in his famous picture, just in this mudra. Holy Mother's Ramakrishna's like this. You see. And Holy Mother's is more like this, but Swamiji is like doing that mudra for meditation, and he just settles it right there, snugly, and then just forgets it, you see, and forgets his body, what to speak of his limbs. So, angame jayatva, irregular, uncomfortable, unsteady, shakiness, erratic vibration. You could probably apply it to other things than just physical limbs. Because you have a subtle body with physical limbs tonight too, with subtle limbs, right? Yeah, you have to become aware of that. What's my subtle body look like? See, start to examine yourself, how you are in your dream state. Begin to discover your capacities there. Just all a matter of becoming aware. Now those are the 4, and we have to end here. So let's take the final quote. Good timing. All impediments are of 3 types: self-inflicted, due to the imbalances in the body and the world, and due to genetic and cosmic defects. That's how Patanjali describes it. That is adhyatmika, Adibhaudika and Adidaivika are the Sanskrit words. You'll find Sri Krishna talking about those too in the Gita. Arjuna asks him about things. Of course, that's Adidaiva, not Adidaivika. But if you talk about the similarities between them, then you find out that these defects are there. Self-inflicted, due to the imbalances of the body and the world, and due to genetic and cosmic defects. They're not willing to leave it just with genetic defects. That's not going to explain much. It has to go to the cosmic level to find out where these genetic defects came from. I mean, you have to explain why you were born into certain families and got those genetics, right? Otherwise, how far are you taking me here? Is it going to explain why I was born a leper, or why I was born with various diseases, and so forth? Why others weren't? I need to know the source here. See, so I need to go back to the cosmic mind, to my other incarnations and so forth, my subtle body, to find out where I took on these defects and what caused them. And this is all the world of prana and psychic prana, you see. You have to light up the land with this prana, the inner lands. You have to light it up and move through it. And then you'll know the reasons for the way you are. And that's not just with negative things. You'll know why you are as good as you are, and what your abilities are, and so forth. That's very important. Now he goes on to finish, and this is important. Adherence to a single spiritual discipline, such as japa and practicing the presence of God, removes them. Now Patanjali only mentioned God maybe twice in all the Yoga Sutras. There are 4 padas filled with dozens and dozens of sutras in that yoga scripture. Patanjali, that darshana, and that scripture that is the base of it. But he only mentions God twice, and here's one of them. He was very convinced that you didn't need to believe in God to practice yoga. That once you started into yoga, you would find out what God was yourself, for you. In fact, probably find out that you're that. Because it's not like he wasn't aware in 140 BC that thou art, or 140 AD, I'm sorry, that thou art. He knew all the Vedic wisdom all the way back to Vasishtha and before. So he knew the non-dual truth. So he's saying here, japa would be one thing. That is, chant the names of the Lord, say your mantra, which is coming up here as a cross-section of these classes. We had a whole retreat on mantra a couple years here ago. And also practice the presence of God. Isn't that nice? So you would have those 2 methods. The bhakta would repeat the name of the Lord. The jnani would, go formless. See, practice the presence of the Lord. I and my Father are one. So here, a few minutes late, we shall end this first class of 5 on food, prana, and sadhana, and I hope to see you all back here via the prana, the outer prana, next week, with all these teachings already coursing through you and opening up nadis, great internal subtle nerves, into the central channel to aid you in full enlightenment, full revelation. The enlightenment of the entire human frame and form in all its passionate intensity. Om Bhadram Karnabhihi Srinayama Devaha Bhadram Pasyema Akshabir Yajatraha Stirai Rangayishtushtuvam Sastanuvir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuho Svastina Indra Vrida Shravaha Svastina Pusha Vishwadevaha Svastina Starksho Arishtanemihi Svastino Brihaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we see with these eyes what is good and spiritual, hear with these ears what is noble and uplifting, and may we, while worshipping the Lord and Mother of the universe with healthy minds and bodies, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hare Om.